Trump's call to redistrict Texas, redistrict those U.S. congressional seats, perhaps even adding 3 to 5 new Republican majority seats. Where do you see everything laying out with the special session coming up right now, Senator?
Well, let me just start by saying that my heart is with everybody who lost somebody in the tragic floods in Central Texas. I think all of our hearts are, and we are still grieving. And that should be the number one priority of this legislature as we come back together. And I think we can talk a lot about what the governor is able to do or not able to do, but the legislature is in session. And the first priority should be responding to that devastation and exactly allowing people to grieve and begin healing. And instead, we spent hours and hours yesterday on the Senate floor working on Trump's redistricting plan, putting the president over people, putting politicians over people, and making sure that he's able to continue his extremist harmful agenda, even if there is very valid backlash in the midterms.
Talk to me about why you think we've got moderates, we've got independents, we've got progressives, and the blue wave hit hard.
That's because the policies under this administration are just that bad. I mean, that's just point blank period. What I don't want Democrats to do is to feel like this is their time to take their victory laps. Because right now, I do believe that what we saw on November 4th was in response to Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, we've got to give Democrats something to vote for. So when you're seeing the fact that people are working and they can't afford to buy food, as well as pay for their housing, as well as pay for their health care, as well as pay for child care, then we need to be putting forward policies that we're going to be aggressive about. We need to really make sure that we're pushing for raising the minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily need the federal government to assist them, right? We're talking about 42 million people in this country are on SNAP benefits. A lot of people could get off of that if they just could get a living wage. And so we need to be pushing policies that excite people and make people believe that we are going to fight for affordability because we see them and we understand their pain.
We get people who walk into our office every day and say, I don't want to make phone calls. That makes me a little bit nervous, but I can write letters. Right? I can write a letter to my neighbor. I'd like to tell the story of a young man that I met who moved from Mississippi not too long ago. Just saw something very bright in this person. He wasn't really the activist type or the organizer type, very deep thinker, but he had a skill that we don't often think of as far as organizing and activism. Was with camera. That person is Jeremy Hines, and I watched him really develop his skill and become the vision of the movement over the last 2 years, chronicling everything that we've done from protests to rallies to testifying in the Capitol. There's space in the movement for everybody. There's room for all of us to really lean in and add our gifts to what's going on. So it doesn't always look like whether you're a financier, whether you are really good at raising money, whether you're good at, several different things, whether you're cooking. Listen, the movement has to be fueled. Mm-hmm. Right? There's some people, that we have folks who do baked goods, mm-hmm. right? And so there's so many ways that people can add their gifts. Last election cycle, Louis, there were folks who were just so nervous about the outcome of the election that they were baking every day. We have to tell them, don't bring any more baked goods to the office. But that was just their skill and what they brought to the movement. And so we had plenty of cakes and pies and everything we needed at the HQ.
This has never been about immigration. This has always been about control. The easiest way to control a population is to keep them afraid, to keep them looking over their shoulder, to keep them in line. Don't draw attention to yourself. Don't speak your mind. Don't criticize the state. Otherwise, you'll be disappeared. Self-proclaimed Christians are cheering on as masked men tear children from their parents. Resistance starts right here. By refusing to mirror the hate and the violence and the inhumanity that surrounds us. In a time of shadows, we must shine our light. Like many of you, I am tempted by hopelessness. But then I look out on a crowd of neighbors who have gathered together to save their beloved country. And all of a sudden, I feel a little bit of hope. And a little bit of hope is a dangerous thing.
Texas voters reject extremism. Yesterday, Democrats and progressives swept elections across the Lone Star State. Here's what you need to know. Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram called it an 11-0 shutout for GOP candidates in Tarrant County. Every Republican candidate lost in Fort Worth, Mansfield, and Keller ISD. But it wasn't just in the DFW. In the Houston area, Katy ISD school board candidate James Cross, a longtime local educator, defeated book-banning and anti-trans extremist incumbent Victor Perez. And in Collin County, the home of Ken Paxton, the Collin County Democratic Party lists 16 wins, including a new mayor in Richardson, Democrat and former city council member Amir Omar. Michelle Davis at Lone Star Left called yesterday's election MAGA's very bad night in Texas and a statewide rejection of extremism. Michelle gives big credit to the organizing efforts of the Tarrant County Young Democrats who, quote, didn't just show up, they organized, knocked on doors, made calls, and fought for every single school board seat they were targeting. And guess what? They swept them all. That's the kind of ground game that wins elections. That's the kind of energy we need to be building, unquote. And hell yes. I'm Haley in San Marcos, Texas, and if you need a little boost of serotonin, find more on progressive wins across the state on the Daily Dispatch, everywhere you stream Progress Texas podcasts.
This giant turnout of Democrats who want to come and vote in this primary, people are noticing that there is something terribly, terribly wrong. It's very, very ugly, but we mustn't turn away from it. We must keep our eyes on what is happening around us and continue to stand up, even though things are getting rather scary, as folks in Minneapolis will absolutely tell you. That's a scary place to be for anybody who cares at this point.
A lot of people maybe listening, especially in Houston, which has been targeted time and time again, top down from our governor's office. I want people to show out and vote for leaders that will protect their communities, make us stronger together.
What Minneapolis proved is it's not just about voting. As important as voting is, it's community resistance. It is literally nonviolent resistance leading back from the civil rights movement, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to be out there looking out for the other people in your community and fighting back any way you can.
I mean, young people are going to be really important in this election and future elections to come. As the resident spring chicken, really at the end of the day, the politics that matter are with the people you care about and your community. And it's really easy to lose sight of that, but I think there's a lot of power in it.
Absolutely. The people have the power, and that is showing in what we've been seeing lately across Texas.
He's got to understand all of the attention that this has brought, and he's up for election in 2026 as well. I don't understand how anyone, whether they're Republican or Democrat, can stand for this continual rigging of our elections by drawing districts that pinpoint. And these days, one of the other members was looking at the maps, looking at the data and saying, this looks like AI, because it is so precise in how they have divided the districts. And the district currently I'm in, Congressman Doggett's district. The new district that I would be drawn into is 27, which goes from where I am in the outskirts of Austin all the way to the coast in Corpus Christi. Honestly, these maps are so gerrymandered, and I think the public is tired of this. So I think that Governor Abbott should be worried about his own reelection if he goes forward with rigging these maps.
So welcome, patriots. Welcome, patriots who will never bow down to a king. Welcome, patriots who, by your presence today, by your courage, say we will never yield to a tyrant. Our struggle for independence 250 years ago freed America from a king far away, and we will never yield to a king from Mar-a-Lago. It is so good to see so many flags out there on this American Flag Day. With our flags, with our signs, we say we are patriots who love our country enough that we're determined to make it better and more just for all.
What kind of society are future generations of Texas Hispanic and Black children going to grow up in where their government doesn't feel accountable to them? Under this map, white Texans receive one member of Congress for every 445,000 residents. If you're Hispanic, it takes about 1.4 million residents for that same representation. If you are Black, it takes 2 million. In this proposal, a Hispanic Texan has 1/3 the political value of a white Texan under this plan, and a Black Texan 1/5. It would take 3 Hispanics to equal the representation of 1 white Texan and 5 Black Texans to equal the value of 1 white Texan. Under these lines, Texas Hispanics will be the most underrepresented population group in all 50 states.
They're banking on us to stay divided. Just for a quick moment, imagine if we coalesced. just the power that we have if we coalesce. We are so alike. Historically, currently, we are so alike. Just for a moment, just imagine if we coalesced. We could change everything. We just have to get out of our heads and open our hearts, and we can get it done.
And a special thank you to my 2.5-year-old baby niece, Jane, for staying up way past her bedtime to be here. It's her first political event. So I'll tell you this. So I called my mom last week to tell her I had officially made the decision to run for U.S. Senate. And no joke, she said, "That's great, son," and then proceeded to spend the rest of the call telling me about Jane's potty training that day. True story. That's a grandmother for you.
We decide what Texas is now, right? We are Texas, not Davy Crockett, who lived here for 2 weeks before he was killed, doesn't determine what Texas is. The story of America isn't that we were good or that we were bad. Into the cheat code of the Constitution and also the Texas Constitution is the capacity for self-improvement.
Right.
And that we have become a more free people over the centuries. The story of America is to be more perfect, not to be perfect, full stop.
Right.
And that is also the story of Texas.
I know it's easy to kind of get sucked into the vitriol of a primary. But remember, the only reason that we are having a contested primary is because Texas is winnable. If it weren't winnable, there wouldn't be a contested primary.
Right. You'd be asking people, please run. Would you please put your name on the ballot?
If primaries were bad for parties, Republicans would have been losing in Texas 20 years ago. Right now, Democrats are outvoting Republicans in Texas. I mean, this primary has been a wonderful thing for voter engagement and voter contact. We have to make sure it stays a good thing for that. You know, after the election, there needs to be an acknowledgement that these are both great candidates and they're going to represent our party really well, regardless of who we nominate. You might have a different opinion about what the path forward is, but have some respect for the electorate. They're going to make the decision for what they think is best for our party and for the state of Texas on Tuesday. And we should respect that, bear hug, and sprint to November, because the consequence of us losing elections has meant real life damages to people. The whole country's counting on us to meet this moment, and I think we're ready to do that.
It's election day. Why vote? You can get ICE out of your communities, reject a massive data center, have quality, affordable healthcare in the most uninsured state in the nation, fully fund our neighborhood public schools instead of book bans and voucher scams, make billionaires pay their fair share and increase minimum wage, protect our neighbors and land from pollution, etc., etc., etc. These are all public policy failures enabled by money in politics and leaders who do not care about you or me. Today's the day to use your most fundamental right. Go vote. We saw Trump and Republicans in Congress try to redistrict us out of our leaders, specifically to reduce the power of our Black and brown neighbors' votes. Texas is at a turning point, and I believe that many of us feel disillusioned in our government leaders and the impacts of public policy. It's hard to feel in a country deep in the trenches of corruption, the Epstein files, and war now, and in a state that's been overrun by Republican rule for decades. Texans are tired, and now's the time to invest in progress. That means electing leaders who will deliver on your values. There's been a lot of attention on the U.S. Senate primary, and for good reason. 2 leaders are shaping visions for the future of our state. But there are even more down-ballot candidates that you can decide to swing support toward. Visit Go Vote Texas to make your voting plan and DM us if you have any questions today, the last day to vote in the primaries. The primaries will be over soon, and the road to November is short. Who cares? You should. You know what's on the line, so we hope you'll vote for progress today.
I think it's very important to be able to have perspective on history. As much as we like to look back on the 1960s and be able to see them as our ancestors who worked a lot and fought very hard for the rights that we have today, I think it's also important to be able to remember that we are also someone else's ancestors. And years from now, people are going to be able to look back on us and be able to see, what did they do? How did they move forward? What was the work that they ended up putting in order for our future people to be able to have the rights that they have. And I think having that perspective, knowing that the people before us, what they went through, I think that invigorates me to keep on moving forward, to keep on trying and pushing ahead, and also trying to know that I'm not doing any of this alone. I've been very fortunate to be a part of amazing organizations such as Progress Texas, and just know that together we can accomplish so much. And so rather than trying to separate us, it's about moving forward in solidarity. Arm in arm, hand in hand, there's so much that we can accomplish.
What are we doing here today, Bryan Cranston?
We are at the Johnson Library in Austin, Texas, celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. A momentous occasion. I was lucky enough to play the president in a play and a movie, and it's hard for me to believe that in my lifetime, this legislation was essential in order to grant personal freedoms and liberties to every American citizen. Thank God for it. Thank God the president had the foresight and the wherewithal to be able to pull it through Congress and make it the law of the land. So we're here to celebrate that today.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy the ceremony.
Thanks.
Well, I don't know if you all have noticed, but Trump does seem to respect strength, right? He doesn't mess with people who know what they are about and know what they're there to do. And that's what we have to be. We have to unapologetically lead for Texans. And I believe that when we do that and we stand up for the people of Texas, unlike our governor who bows down to Trump, who has no respect for himself, much less for the position and the service of Texans. When we have a governor who stands up for Texans, I do believe Trump backs off, right? Because bullies respect strength. And that's what we have to be. We have to be strong in our values, unapologetic in the work that we do for Texans.
actually, Railroad Commission of Texas is one of the most consequential environmental jobs in the entire country. While this state freezes and all the lights go out kind of at the drop of a hat, at the same time, they let these folks massively pollute without holding them accountable. These 3 commissioners that serve, they all make their money in the industry that they're supposed to be regulating. The corruption and the self-dealing is off the charts. And they're unwilling to do anything that the Texas Oil and Gas Association doesn't approve of, because Texoga is one of the best funded lobbying groups probably in the country, but certainly in this state. And they pretty much get what they want, especially from railroad commissioners. So that's why, if you live in Texas, why our energy infrastructure is still vulnerable to a massive freeze or a massive heat wave, is because they refuse to regulate the gas fields that we use to generate electricity. So while they deal themselves and their wealthy friends millions and even billions of dollars, they don't do anything to protect the people of Texas. Wow. So that's why I'm running, because you can't blow smoke up my ass. I know this business inside and out. And so let's make a change at the Railroad Commission.
Every single person is holy. Every single person counts. This American democracy started with that same self-evident truth that all people are created equal. This democracy is not just a constitution, it's a covenant. It's a promise that we make to each other to share this country. Those billionaires and their puppet politicians are breaking that promise. With every transfer of wealth, with every suppressed vote, with every gerrymandered district, they are breaking that sacred promise. 2,000 years ago, when the powerful few abused the many, that barefoot rabbi walked into the seat of power and flipped over the tables of injustice. His love rose to meet abuse without becoming it. To those who love democracy, to those who love our neighbors, it's time to start flipping tables.
Who does Texas Together benefit, and how are you building trust with those communities that we've talked about who maybe don't believe in the Texas Democratic Party because they haven't heard from the Texas Democratic Party in maybe decades?
There are a lot of people who don't believe in the Texas Democratic Party because they felt let down by them. I'm working every day to rebuild this party so I can earn people's trust back. And I wouldn't have run for chair of the party if I was happy with it.
From March to November, we need to be talking to literally every single Texan in the state and making the case that Republicans have failed us and Democrats deserve a chance here. We cannot keep going in the state as we have been, and we need to elect different leadership.
Who we're talking to and who this effort is for every working class person in Texas that has felt shut out and shut down, that is stuck at the bottom groveling for crumbs, while the billionaire class has bought and paid for this government and used it as their own personal feeding trough. This movement's for them. If you feel like life has gotten harder over the last 30 years, if you feel like things are not better now than they were 30 years ago, maybe your schools aren't as good as they were in the 90s. Maybe your community's not as safe as it was. Maybe your bridges and roads aren't as great. Maybe your taxes are higher. And you would like to see the state get back to its former glory. I would remind people that Democrats built Texas and that the biggest difference between now and those issues is that Republicans have been running the state into the ground for the last 30 years. And this movement is for you to take this state back to its former glory so that people will have the opportunity to live that Texas miracle that they were told, but has been a false bill of goods for a lot of people.
This is when I realized that our system was really, really broken. So I was sick. I had an issue. I went to the doctors. I don't have insurance, so I paid the $300 office visit. He said, "We're gonna have to do this test, right?" I was like, "Well, how much is the test?" My first thing is how much.
Sure.
Right? I want to know, like, what's it gonna cost me, and can I afford it? He says, "Oh, they'll let you know later." Day before, they called me and said, "Mr. Pulido, do you have insurance?" I said, "No, I told you guys I was private pay." And they said, "Oh, it's that the test is $10,000.
Wow.
And I said, "Well, I guess I'm not getting the test." And she said, "Well, we have a payment plan." And I said, "No, ma'am, you have to understand, I'm not paying $10,000 for that test, whether it's in payments or otherwise."
Right.
And I said, "Here's what I want you to do. Go talk to whoever you got to talk to. Ask them how much I can pay cash, and then I'll tell you if I can afford it or not." So 3 hours later, she called me and said, "Mr. Pulido, we'll let you have that test for $1,500 cash." This is when I realized that our system was really, really broken.
Yeah.
Because what's happening is they're milking us as we're not viewed as humans, right? We're viewed as people that they're trying to get money out of. And I just don't think it's fair game for them to do that when it comes to our lives.
Courage is contagious. We are fighting tooth and nail to preserve the integrity of the job that your kids should be taking in the future. This is not about us. This is about each one of you. In this moment, when they are all coming after us, when you know what's happening with Trump is not right nationwide, courage is contagious. At this point, they're not working for the people. They are truly just invested in giving Trump the outcome he wants, which is help him fix the next election. And so as Texas Democrats, this quorum break, it is rooted in our Texas Constitution. The founding fathers said, we want the minority party to have a tool when the majority party has gone so far off the rails that they have lost their way to the integrity of the system. So this quorum break that we are doing, it's about every voter. It's about Republican voters. It's about Democratic voters. It's about ensuring that there really is the opportunity for every vote and every voice to matter.
Let me tell you something. The people that run Texas, they're cowards, but we, the people, have courage. So everybody knows that gerrymander is like an ugly word, but most people can't truly understand how insidious it is. So let me tell you this, another statistic. Donald Trump won the state of Texas by approximately 56%. But Republicans in Congress, they represent a little bit more than 56% from the state of Texas. In fact, they represent 66% of our delegation right now. It's because the seats are already rigged. But they've decided that they want to rig them a little more. If for some reason they get 5 more seats, Republicans in Congress from the state of Texas would represent 79% of Texas. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Greg Abbott caught paying off donors with government contracts. The Texas governor is under heat after Public Citizen released Awarding Influence, a new report revealing a massive years-long pay-to-play scheme funneling nearly $1 billion in no-bid state contracts to his biggest political donors. Companies including Doggett Equipment Services Group, Gotham's LLC, H&TB Holdings, and many others are cited as examples of operations that saw massive influxes of state contracts awarded without competition after the CEOs of those companies began making sizable contributions to Abbott's Political Action Committee, Texans for Greg Abbott, PAC. Meanwhile, the Texas Observer is out with a deep dive on how Abbott got Texas Republicans to protect right-wing loudmouths on our college campuses, after campus administrators decided they'd had enough. Years later, he led those same GOP lawmakers to place limits on on-campus expressive activities. This gives today's administrators, who have taken the place of more liberal predecessors, greater leeway in stopping protests. To add to that oppressive campus culture, crunching down on free speech and protest, Abbott has gone so far as to set up a hotline for MAGA college kids to rat out their instructors. The Observer writes, quote, "The independence of university leadership, to say nothing of faculty, has been greatly deteriorated by political dictates and targeted pressure campaigns. Abbott's appointed regents are all big campaign donors who sit neatly in his back pocket. The chancellorships of the big three university systems, UT, A&M, and Texas Tech, are now all about to be controlled by ex-Republican politicians," unquote. Catch the rest, including a potential opponent for Greg, everywhere you stream Progress Texas podcasts. And I'm Tatum in Austin.
Can everyone on the Oversight Committee say the same thing? Will members of the Oversight Committee please raise your hand if you believe both Hunter and Trump should be held accountable for any of the indictments against them, if convicted by a jury of their peers? We can take a minute. No, it's serious. This is a serious matter. If y'all need to think about it, we can take a moment and think about it. It is serious. This is very serious. Think about it. Should both Hunter and Trump be held accountable? I want to see whether you'd raise your hands. Should Hunter and Trump both be held accountable if they're found guilty on any of their indictments? Raise your hand if you think that equal justice under the law applies and Trump should be held accountable. I think it is worse than embarrassing that Republicans won't raise their hands. They refuse to say that equal justice under the law should apply to everyone. And when you step back and think about it,
then what about the
it's kind
January
of scary.
6th defendants?
It's kind of scary. This double standard insults the institutions of Congress that people fought and died to build. This impeachment hearing clearly is not about justice. We cannot say equal justice under the law for everyone except for the guy who holds the leash.
Another round goes to Beto O'Rourke. Right now, it's not looking too good for Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. First, his messy divorce is making headlines. Then, he's slipping in the polls in his primary race against incumbent Senator John Cornyn. And now, his lawsuit against Beto O'Rourke is falling apart. 6 weeks ago, Paxton sued Beto for bribery, fraud, and campaign finance violations, all because Beto supported the Texas Democrats who recently broke quorum. But even the brand new all-Republican Governor Greg Abbott appointed 15th Court of Appeals isn't buying it. They just lifted a restraining order that blocked Powered by People from fundraising. calling Paxton's move a likely violation of free speech. Bottom line, this lawsuit's going nowhere fast, and Ken Paxton's troubles are just getting started. Knowing our Attorney General, there will be plenty more to come, but don't worry, we've got you covered. I'm Haley in San Marcos, and you can follow along with the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch everywhere you stream Progress Texas podcasts.
My 16-year-old had just gotten his first job and worked so hard, and was getting his first check and saying, "That's it?" And I said, "You are paid a little bit more than the minimum wage, but you're not supporting a family. This is for your Nike money. You're not feeding kids and keeping a roof over your head." And in Texas, the minimum wage hasn't been raised in decades. It should be criminal.
We go to work so we can provide, so we can support ourselves and our families. That one job should be enough. And that is something that we need to keep talking about, and we need to keep asking that question and posing the question. And yes, you're exactly right. The minimum wage needs to change. It needs to increase, and that needs to be raised. Again, unfortunately, those folks that have been in power of this state at the state capitol for the last couple of decades or so, they don't see it that way. That has led us to the position that we're in, where we're in this uphill battle. Things are getting more expensive. Things are costing more. Every day or every year, things are increasing in cost, and we're not keeping up with that. And as you see union density or union membership grow, earnings are going to grow with that in that space. And so it seems pretty simple to me is that we're able to grow the union density, the union market, and have people join the union. It not only helps our members and our affiliates, but it helps everybody else. We level the playing field. We raise the playing field for everybody at the same time.
So I don't know if you guys know this, I'm now a Texas resident. I live in the Woodlands. So just like, this is a really important moment. This is the only time I'm going to ask you to show hands, but how many of you guys feel sometimes a little disheartened, a little worn out, right? We all feel that way. And now one of the things we're up against in this kind of battle for democracy is that those that are anti-democratic, that want a more authoritarian government, they get energized by chaos. And so every time there's chaos, this is what they love. It's like a hit of energy to them, like a 5-hour energy drink. People like you and I, we get exhausted by chaos. We get worn out. We want to give up, right? And this is why one of the things I want to tell you first is take that burden you're carrying on your shoulder, that you got to put out that one more tweet or you got to do whatever, drop that burden. Take a big deep breath and smile, because we are all in this together. This isn't riding, the future of the United States of America is not riding on your shoulders alone. It's riding on all of our shoulders together. You know that saying, it's like many hands make light work, right? That's what we're dealing with now. all of us together. If we look around this room, you're going to see people from all over the state of Texas. You're going to see people from all over the area in Dallas. But more importantly, you're going to see people all over the political spectrum. And what we're dealing with now is not a battle that's right against left. This is a battle, as I said at the Democratic National Convention. This is the uneasy, sometimes, coalition of the few on the sane right, the center, and the left to defend our democracy against those that would tear it asunder.
I'm just fed up. I'm fed up with their need to control everything. While we were on the floor, the speaker made an announcement saying that for those Democrats who had participated in the quorum break, they would be required to sign a permission slip to leave the floor, agreeing to be subject to DPS control. That was the condition that was set by the speaker in order for members to leave. When I was listening to the announcement, the order, the directive to notify us that we can only leave if we sign away our rights, I just said enough. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of them taking everything. And the only way I can resist is if I stand against it. It's just an exercise of control over us as Democrats, and it's not necessary. It's wasteful, and I've had enough. And I have a right to challenge our government, and I have a right to resist, and that's what I'm doing.
Texas Republicans tried to steal 5 congressional seats from Texans. They belong to us. They don't belong to a specific party or any occupant of the White House. They belong to Texas. So 4 of those 5 Democratic Party voters outvoted the Republicans in those districts. So I think we're seeing a massive backfiring and massive mobilization because people are fed up and mad as hell, and they don't want to take it anymore, and they're ready to do something about it. And what they can do right now, since it's not the general, is vote in the primary for their candidate of their choice.
Right.
So I'm pleased that people turned out to vote the top of the ticket down to county races and state legislature races. We saw on both sides and both parties, some incumbents be swept out by voter enthusiasm. And that's the choice of the voters. But I'm so pleased to see how many people turned out. I talked to everybody that I met. I talked to people at the gas stations, at the grocery stores, at the post office about voter turnout. And one of my board members texted and said, "Is it all this Dallas turnout from you, Kathleen?" And I said, ha ha ha. People are wanting to participate. So I'm really thrilled about the results in the terms of turnout?
They want us at each other's throats. They want us focused on how we're different instead of on how we're the same. I am tired of being pitted against my neighbor. I am tired of being told to hate my neighbor. It's been more than 10 years of this kind of politics. Politics as blood sport. Politics as professional wrestling. It tears families apart. It ends friendships. And it leaves us all feeling terrible all of the time. There is a deep hunger in this state and in this country for a different kind of politics. Not a politics of hate, not a politics of tribes, not a politics of division, but a politics of love. A love that can heal what's broken in America.
Silence. Silence is what Donald Trump wants to hear from the likes of PBS and NPR and Stephen Colbert, and yes, from us at Progress Texas. I'm podcasting director Chris Mosier. As you may have noticed, the attacks on independent media outlets and personalities that don't bend and bow to Republican talking points are well underway and plain as day. In Texas, there's a special session starting Monday here in Austin at the state capitol. On the agenda, a GOP plan to stack our congressional map to help Donald Trump maintain control beyond next year's midterm election in 2026. Progress Texas will be covering that threat and more fearlessly from the progressive side specific to Texas. But here's a hard fact. As we speak, we've got about 3 months worth of funding remaining. Here's another fact, and we like this one actually. If only 10% of our audience got on board for only $10 a month, we'd be good for the next year, during which we'll be all over the 2026 races for the U.S. Senate, all of the U.S. House, Texas Attorney General, the rest of our statewide offices, including the one currently held by Governor Greg Abbott. We're learning lately that media we used to think of as free isn't exactly free. We need your help to keep going. If you dig what we do, we invite you to jump in and join the fight and save Progress Texas from a permanent vacation this summer. We're looking forward to the fight. We know you are as well. Please join us at progresstexas.org.
talk to me about why you think we've got moderates, we've got independents, we've got progressives, and the blue wave hit hard.
That's because the policies under this administration are just that bad. I mean, that's just point blank period. What I don't want Democrats to do is to feel like this is their time to take their victory laps. Because right now, I do believe that what we saw on November 4th was in response to Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, we've got to give Democrats something to vote for. So when you're seeing the fact that people are working and they can't afford to buy food, as well as pay for their housing, as well as pay for their health care, as well as pay for child care, then we need to be putting forward policies that we're going to be aggressive about. We need to really make sure that we're pushing for raising the minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is still $7.25. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily need the federal government to assist them, right? We're talking about 42 million people in this country are on SNAP benefits. A lot of people could get off of that if they just could get a living wage. And so we need to be pushing policies that excite people and make people believe that we are going to fight for affordability because we see them and we understand their pain.
Taylor, I'd like you to come up and take this over. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I,
Taylor Burnett,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office
of the office
of Texas State Senator for District 9
of Texas State Senator for District 9
of the state of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend
the
Constitution and laws
of
the United States and of this state. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
What a difference a day makes in South Texas. All it took for Republicans like Congresswoman Monica De La Cruz and McAllen Mayor Javier Villalobos to start talking like Democrats when it comes to ICE enforcement was the surprise arrest of a McAllen family whose 2 teenage sons are members of McAllen High School's celebrated mariachi band. Suddenly, South Texas Republicans are all about embracing immigrants who work hard and pay their bills and their taxes and contribute to their communities. Let's be super clear. Republicans like De La Cruz and Villalobos are part of the Donald Trump Stephen Miller machine that has not gone after the worst of the worst. They're meeting quotas by going after families and children and students and workers. In short, your neighbors. How about leadership like what we see from San Antonio Congressman Joaquin Castro, who's now on a weekly schedule to visit the horrific Dilley ICE lockup, desperately trying to help? Or Congresswoman Veronica Escobar keeping a spotlight on the even deadlier Camp East, Montana, near her city of El Paso? Or congressional candidate Bobby Pulido, who has more than earned his Progress Texas endorsement by exposing the ICE snatching and separating of Antonio and Caleb Gomez Cuellar and their family. South Texas, remember, Republicans bowed to Trump and allowed all of this to happen. Then ask yourself, what kind of leadership do you deserve? I'm Chris Mosier in Austin. There's more in today's Daily Dispatch. Find it everywhere you stream Progress Texas podcasts.
Every tomato you buy is from one corporation. It doesn't matter the farm, doesn't matter where it's from. Every single tomato seed is made by one corporation, and that one corporation, because it has a monopoly, makes their seeds more valuable than gold. They are price gouging us so much. We used to live in a free market, and they say that we still do. I disagree. I think we live in a monopoly market where the monopolies have control, the monopolies have the power. And as Texas Ag Commissioner, Texas is a little unique. We can go after these monopolies and we can start breaking them up now. If we do not get more farmers into our system, we are going to have a major collapse. And this is the deal. We are already losing 70 farms a week in the state of Texas. Since Reagan and Reaganomics, that whole scam, we have lost 250,000 farms. People talk about how NAFTA sent our factories overseas. It did that to our farms as well. It systematically destroyed our agriculture system. And as Texas Agriculture Commissioner, I am going to be working to reshore our agriculture to get young folks back into farming. And it's not just about protecting family farms. Most family farms are gone. It's about rebuilding Texas families, rebuilding Texas farms, and getting our food system secure again.
A lot of people at HD 138 are very nervous about what's going to happen to education in our state. Like we talked about, vouchers is going to come through, and we will see the impacts of those vouchers this year as those programs are starting to roll out. One of the things that impacts us much here in Spring Branch and the HD 138 We have a problem with our busing system. We have students and families that have to walk their students sometimes miles just to get to school. That's something that the state can fix. And something that I definitely want to work on if headed to the legislator. There's also a fear of schools having to close down and resources being stripped from districts. I think another thing that people don't really talk about a lot is that when you strip away schools, that's also an economic hub that you take away from that area. Schools having to close down means that families usually tend to move out of those neighborhoods, which hurts businesses, and it hurts the local economy of the neighborhood. Here in Spring Branch, where I currently reside in the district, we have already seen a number of budget cuts on the north side of the district to schools, and people are really worried about how all of this is going to impact us. And that's something that we're talking about on the trail every day.
What do you think is at the heart of this heightened degree of interest from Democrats? What do you think's fueling all this?
Man, I gotta hope that it's the same thing that's fueling me. My wife, she coined the phrase screaming into the void. That's what she feels like. She feels like she's screaming into the void. She's seeing things on the news. People are getting shot in the streets. What can we do? And so that's why one of the reasons why I've thrown my hat in the ring. I think everybody is feeling the same thing. That is, the only thing we can do now is vote. We've done everything else to try and effect some change. We've had tearful conversations at Thanksgiving dinner with our family members. We have text chains that people are no longer a part of that we love. We've done everything that we can. And now the only thing we have left to do is vote. And I think that people are feeling it. And they're feeling that there is not the kind of representation down in Austin and in Washington, D.C. that they deserve. And I think there's going to be a big tidal change, big wave coming in November. That's what I think.